And welcome back to a new Rocks CTM test world. So I've got something really cool for you guys today. It's kind of a system that I've seen done bits and pieces of, but I haven't really seen a fully fleshed out system for it. At least this in depth. As you can see, this is the assortment of command blocks for it. But the gist of the system is that it allows for custom smelting of items. So for this example in itself, we have what we dubbed the Crimson Furnace. We have our little furnace here. We can plop in an item, and it goes ahead, and it starts cooking it. As you can see, we have particle effects going. The name changes if we exit and enter it. And it will go ahead, and it will smelt our new item, which in this case is the Soul Gem, only but the finest of gems. So as you can see, it goes up and beyond the normal furnace kind of functionality, as you would not normally be able to do something like that. I also have a second example here with the Lapis Lazuli, which goes ahead, does a little particle effects, and once it finishes cooking, it plays the sound effect, and then bam, an awkward potion. So for example like this, if you want to have, this is kind of the example of, say you wanted to have potions in your map, but you didn't want to give out nether warts, but you wanted the player to be able to make their own. So something like this is where you give multi-purpose to Lapis Lazuli, where the player can either choose to use the lapis for a chance or to make potions. Just an idea for you guys. Now, how does the system work? I'm not going to delve too deep in the command block specifics of it. I will be leaving a couple schematics in the description for you guys to use. The custom smelting schematic with the two examples I have here. I'll probably do this setup stuff, which I'll explain in a second, and then I'll have a schematic for the furnace that I have. So the gist of it is, if we head over into spectator mode, we can see inside here, we have ourselves a little, you can see right there too, we have an armor stand. Now that armor stand is important because we do all of our command stuff relative to an armor stand named Crimson Furnace. That's important because if we wanted to move the Crimson Furnace to another location, we don't have to go back and change all the command blocks that have specific locations. We can instead just have it point to the Crimson Furnace armor stand, and it will work regardless of where it is. Now, one caveat to the system is that it only works with one Crimson Furnace. You can only have one in your map. So it would be something you would have in your monument area maybe, or wherever your centralized hub area for the player is. That being said, the system probably could be updated to work with any number of them. However, I decided to go with the route that only worked with one of them, as it was the easiest route in general. So for my system in general, I have 6 scoreboard variables. 4 of them are required by default, and the other 2 are expandable. You need these for each recipe you add onto your custom smelting. So we have our CF state, the Crimson Furnace state. This is just what phase of the smelting process that the player that furnace is in. We have the cook timer and the cook state. Those are used for updating the overall cook time with the arrow. Unfortunately, they're necessary just because of the way Minecraft works with the cook time and stuff. But they work on making sure that it takes 10 seconds and there's 10 increments of a status update. We have the recipe to cook, which is the wet recipe. The player is started cooking. And then we have these recipe 1, item slot 1. These would probably be, the names of these could be modified to just be like recipe 1, recipe 2. Those are used to detect whether a particular item of that recipe is in there. So for recipe 1, we're detecting if an emerald is in here. For recipe 2, we're detecting if a lapis is in here. I have them still like that because I had some other stuff that I had to do that I modified. So once you create your armor stand, which I have a quick summon armor stand, 1.5 blocks a bit above, so that it is flush with the ground there. We just summon an armor stand. It has the name Crimson Furnace, which I can show you right here. Crimson Furnace. We go ahead, make it invisible, invulnerable, and no gravity. And that is the gist of the armor stand. So once we have the armor stand, we have to go ahead and set up a few variables. So we just do some scoreboard sets on it, just so the armor stand has the correct states and values that we need. And then we go ahead. So there's 4 main phases to the custom smelting, as well as an error checking bonus thing to make sure the player doesn't cheat and take out an item in the middle of the smelt and have it still smelt something. So phase 1, we go about checking if we have an emerald or a lapis. This is essentially just checking to see if one of the recipes is in there. If one of the recipes is in there, we go ahead and set our recipe to cook to one of those, and we move to phase 2 if a recipe to cook has a recipe in it. Phase 2, it just goes about, we play the particle effect at the armor stand, we increment our cook timer, which is a ticker. So every 20 ticks, redstone ticks, it increments it. It's essentially a timer, a second counter. So this counts up the ticks. The states are how many seconds into the cook it's been. Once the cook timer, which counts up from 1 to 21, once it hits 21, it resets back to 0. And once the state is at 11, which is after the 10 seconds, we move to phase 3. This is just a quick thing that will set the cook time based off of what cook state we're in. So if we're in cook state 1, which is the first second, we have a cook timer of 20 ticks, 40 ticks, and this counts up to 200, which 200 is 10 seconds. So once it reaches the 11th cook state, which is after 10 seconds is complete, we head over to phase 3, where we go ahead, we reset the furnace's name to ready to cook. We set that cook timer to 0. Then, depending on what recipe we are cooking, whether we're cooking an emerald or we're cooking a lapis, we go ahead and add the new item to the 3rd slot in the furnace, which in turn removes the 1st slot. We play our anvil sound effect, and then we change states to state 4, which just resets a few of the variables, resets the cook state, resets the cook timer, resets the recipe to cook, and then moves back to phase 1 and is all ready to start cooking again. For the error checking, the gist of it is, in phase 1, these two commands right here, along with these two, are checking every tick to make sure we have the recipe 1 item in the furnace or the recipe 2 in the furnace. If we had more recipes, it would be checking those as well. But this essentially checks every tick, and it sets that recipe 1 item 1 to either 1 or 0. Now, if we are in phase 2, which is the cooking phase, we're going to be checking, is that recipe 1 item in the slot, and are we cooking recipe 1? If we're cooking recipe 1 and the recipe 1 item isn't in the slot in phase 2, that means the player took it out or swapped it with something else, and we go ahead and kick the phase over to phase 4, which will reset our variables and switch it back to phase 1. And the same with the recipe 2. So it's pretty foolproof from what I can see. I don't know if there's possibly ways to break it, but as you can see, we start cooking it. We switch over to the lapis. It backtracks and then starts cooking that thing. So you won't actually be able to cheat it. I mean, if we take this out, it's going to backtrack it. So there's not really, at least from what I saw in my initial testing, a way to break it, and it will cook your item. And you'll be all set. But that is the gist of the custom smelting system. It is expandable in the sense that you can add more recipes just by adding a few more command blocks and adding an error check for it and the cook right here for it. Now, there probably is a way to optimize all these command blocks to be a bit more condensed and a bit more efficient, but I think for a proof of concept, it does what it's supposed to. But that's it for today for the custom smelting. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or feedback, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. As always, this is Rock, and I'll catch you guys next time.